There's something we all struggle with. Something most people are afraid to say. It's those three words that feel like they're stuck in your throat, like admitting them would somehow make you weak. I'm not okay. People don't want to hear that. And most of the time, we don't want to say it. Because we've been conditioned to believe that being okay is the baseline. That if we're not fine, then something is broken. That admitting we're struggling is the same as admitting failure. But let me tell you something, it's not. Saying, I'm not okay, is one of the hardest and most powerful things you'll ever do. We all carry something. A weight. A burden. Call it what you want. Maybe it's the past that haunts you. Maybe it's regret over things you didn't do. Maybe it's the crushing pressure of expectations you'll never meet. Whatever it is, it sits there, just below the surface, pushing you down. And still, you don't say anything. Because you've been taught that strength means silence. That real strength is keeping it together when your world is falling apart. And that's a lie. Silence doesn't make you strong. It only makes you feel more alone. It isolates you, makes you think you're the only one going through it. I've seen it in people's eyes. The way they pretend. They go about their day, smiling, saying the right things, doing what's expected of them. But underneath, they're drowning. Barely holding on. And they refuse to admit it, because somewhere along the line, they were told that admitting you're struggling is the same as giving up. It's not. Admitting you're not okay is the first step to getting back up. It's not weakness, it's courage. Because when you say those words, I'm not okay, you're opening the door to something most people never find, honesty. Honesty with yourself. And with the people around you. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you told someone how you really feel? Not just the surface level stuff. I'm talking about the heavy things. The things that keep you up at night. The thoughts you can't shake. The pain you've been carrying for so long that you've convinced yourself it's normal. We lie to ourselves every day. We say, I'll get through it. It's just a rough patch. I don't need help. But that's the real trap, isn't it? Believing that you can handle it all on your own. You don't need to. Look, life doesn't give you medals for suffering in silence. It doesn't reward you for keeping your struggles locked inside. If anything, it punishes you. The longer you keep quiet, the heavier the weight becomes. The more you pretend you're fine, the more you convince yourself that you have to keep pretending. And that cycle, it's endless. I've seen people break under that weight. People who thought they had to be strong for everyone else. Who thought admitting they were struggling would make them a burden. But let me tell you something. You're not a burden because you're in pain. You're not weak because you're overwhelmed. The real strength, the kind that people never talk about, isn't admitting that you can't do it alone. There's power in saying, I'm not okay. It's the first step to healing, to understanding yourself, to letting others in. Think about it. When was the last time someone asked how you were, and you told the truth? When was the last time you let someone see behind the mask? It's terrifying, I know. The fear of judgment. The fear of being misunderstood. The fear that people will walk away if they see the real you. But here's the truth. Vulnerability isn't weakness. It's strength. It's real. And it's the only way we're ever going to get through this. When you say, I'm not okay, you give yourself permission to feel. To stop pretending that everything is fine when it isn't. You give yourself permission to ask for help. And more than that, you give others permission to do the same. You show them that it's okay to struggle. That it's okay to fall apart sometimes. And that there's nothing wrong with not being okay. We spend so much time pretending, so much time hiding our pain. But what would happen if we stopped? If we stopped pretending we were invincible and started being real? What if we allowed ourselves to be seen for who we are, not who we think we need to be? I'm not saying it's easy. It's not. It's one of the hardest things you'll ever do. But in that moment, when you finally admit that you're not okay, something changes. You realize that you don't have to carry it all by yourself. You realize that there are people who care, people who want to help, if you let them. You're not alone in this. You never have been. The world tries to tell you that asking for help makes you weak, that showing your pain makes you vulnerable. But the truth? It's the exact opposite. It takes strength to say, I'm struggling. It takes courage to say, I need help. And when you do, you take back control. You take back your power. There's no shame in admitting you're not okay. There's no shame in reaching out. The only shame is in pretending you don't need to, in suffering alone when you don't have to. So, say the words, I'm not okay. Say them, and let them be the start of something new. Because once you admit it, once you let go of the fear, the pride, the need to be perfect, you'll realize something. You'll realize that strength isn't about having it all together. Strength is about being real, about being human. And that's something you never have to apologize for. It's okay to not be okay. Say it. Start the journey to healing.